Maria. I want to present.
आपने इसे प्रेजेंट करनी है?
जी सर।
डॉक्टर मारिया।
जी सर।
लो जी, मारिया। ओके, लेट्स हैव द हिस्ट्री.
My patient, Mrs. Mehwish Talha, wife of Mr. Talha, 33 years of age, graduate by education, housewife, resident of Ukada. Her blood group is O positive. She is married for 7 years. First non-consanguous marriage of the couple. She is gravida 3, para 1 with 1 miscarriage. Previous one cesarean section due to failure to progress of labor. Uh, 5 years ago, with her first day of last menstrual period on 30th May 2020, making her expected date of delivery 6th March 2021, which makes her duration of pregnancy 36 weeks and 2 days. She is admitted in the labor room of Hamid Latif Hospital on 8th Feb 2021 at 3:30 p.m. With the gestational amenorrhea of 36 weeks and 2 days with small for dates baby and reduced liquor, diagnosed on an ultrasonography, admitted for further evaluation and management of reduced growth of fetus and reduced amount of liquor. She is diagnosed case of pregnancy induced hypertension, but her blood pressure was well controlled at the time of admission. My patient conceived spontaneously while having regular menstrual cycles and practicing no contraception. She is sure of her dates. She confirmed her pregnancy by urine pregnancy test at home when she was 10 days overdue. She did her first antenatal visit at second month of gestation to a gynecologist at Okada, where her first ultrasound was done, and she was told about single viable intrauterine sac and there was no any adnexal pathology. Her blood pressure was also checked and was normal. Her baseline investigations were done and were normal according to the patient. She was prescribed tablet folic acid which she took regularly. Her first trimester remained supervised and uneventful with no complaint of nausea, vomiting, lower abdominal pain, burning micturition, vaginal discharge, vaginal bleeding, no history of fever, flu, or rash. She started perceiving fetal movements at the start of fifth month, which correlates with the calendar month of October. Her detailed anomaly scan was done at 20 weeks of gestation and she was reassured that there is no gross fetal anomaly. She had regular antenatal visits that she remained satisfied with her fetal movements and abdominal size according to the period of gestation. She took iron and calcium regularly. Her blood pressure was checked during antenatal visits and found to be normal. There is no history of headache, blurring of vision, epigastric pain, or generalized body swelling. No history of vaginal bleeding, leaking, discharge, lower abdominal pain. No history of easy fatigability, palpitations, and shortness of breath. No family history of any anomalous baby. She was not taking any medicines other than iron and calcium. Her oral glucose tolerance test was done at 28 weeks of gestation, which was normal according to the patient. She developed the complaint of headache during 28th week of gestation, for which she visited her gynecologist and her blood pressure was found to be raised. She was prescribed tablet Aldomet 250 mg 3 times a day, but she was not compliant to the medicine. She had no any BP record. She didn't follow up with the labs, and uh, she didn't had any ultrasound. Missed her all the visits after that after 28 weeks, and didn't did her any ultrasound. At 35 weeks of gestation, her obstetrical ultrasound and Doppler scan was done, and she was told that the growth of the baby was not according to the gestational age, and it was lagging 4 weeks, and blood supply to the fetus is not effective, is not sufficient. Here in the Hamid Latif Hospital, she was admitted and counseled about the diagnosis. Her blood pressure monitoring was done, which was controlled on antihypertensives. Her blood tests were done, fetal kick count chart and CTG was uh, uh, history of headache, blurring of vision, vomiting, epigastric pain, and facial or pedal edema. Uh, she was given two injections 12 hours apart for the fetal lung maturity. Obstetrical history. She is gravida 3 para 1 with one miscarriage, previous one cesarean section. Her last child born was 5 years ago. There is no history of PIH or GDM in that pregnancy. Her emergency lower segment cesarean section was done due to failure to progress of labor, and 3 kg female baby was delivered with good Apgars. Baby was breastfed and vaccinated. Her last miscarriage was 3 years ago. It was her first trimester miscarriage, followed by DNC. Her age of menarche was 15 years with regular cycles of 5 to 6 by 30 days. There is no history of lower abdominal pain.
That Maria will skip this part of history, go on to physical examination.
My patient well oriented in time, space, and person. Her height is 154 centimeter and weight is 80 kg, making her BMI of 28.5 kilograms per meter square. Her pulse is 88 beats per minute. Blood pressure 140 by 90 millimeters of mercury. Temperature is 98 Fahrenheit. There is no pallor, jaundice, cyanosis, or clubbing. Thyroid and accessible lymph nodes are not palpable. No pedal edema or sacral edema present. Both breasts are bilateral symmetrical. There is no tenderness and mass palpable in any of the four quadrants. Nipple is everted and no discharge present. There is normal vesicular breathing in the both lung fields with no added sounds. Lung bases are clear. Apex beat is palpated in left fifth intercostal space, medial to the mid-clavicular line. First and second heart sounds are audible with no added sounds. Abdominal examination. Abdomen is protuberant with central umbilicus. There is stria gravidarum present, no prominent veins or visible pulsations, no abdominal wall edema. There is phalansteal scar mark present. On superficial palpation, there is no tenderness. Symphysiofundal height is 32 centimeter with longitudinal lie and cephalic presentation. Head is 5 by 5 palpable above the pelvic brim. Estimated fetal weight is about 1.5 to 2 kg. Liquor is clinically reduced. Fetal heart rate is 145 beats per minute.
Very good. Thank you. Very good history. Very good history. I must compliment you on that. The point I want to make here is very simple, that it has taken you 7 minutes to describe in such detail the history and physical examination. So if you're giving such detail, don't feel that you're wasting time, you're losing time, because 7 to 10 minutes is allocated time for presentation of history and physical examination. And the first 15 minutes, you present your history and investigations, and then subsequently, other 15 minutes, the examiner, other second examiner, he discusses with you the management of the patient. So if you do this within 7 minutes, you still have 7-8 minutes to go into details of investigations, etc., etc. So this is the right way of presentation of the history. Now, I would like you, which all of you must, I would like you to present a summary of this patient.
So Mrs. Mavish, 33 years of age, gravida 3, para 1.
I don't know whether you were there in the last class or not. I did tell you that when you are asked summary, name is unimportant.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You start with the age. My patient is?
My patient is 33 years of age. She is gravida 3, para 1 with one miscarriage at 36 plus 2 weeks. She is admitted for the evaluation and management of reduced growth of fetus and reduced amount of liquor on ultrasound. She is diagnosed case of pregnancy-induced hypertension, but her blood pressure was well controlled at the time of admission. On abdominal examination, her symphysiofundal height is 32 centimeter with longitudinal lie and cephalic presentation. Head is 5 by 5
Very good.
well-being.
So, more or less, we could improve your summary, but we'll do that next time. Now, here is a patient. What is your diagnosis now? What is the problem?
So she is uh, so this can be intrauterine growth restriction. She has reduced fundal height according to her gestational age.
Yeah, I think we'll elaborate this little more. That I said, what's the problem? Problem is she is gravida 3, previous cesarean section.
Yes, sir.
During this pregnancy, she had pregnancy-induced hypertension. I say that pregnancy-induced PIH because in first trimester her blood pressure was normal.
Yes, sir.
You told us because during first trimester the blood pressure was normal, so that's why it is PIH, pregnancy-induced hypertension. So a patient who is 33, gravida 3, previous cesarean section, emergency for cesarean section for prolonged labor, and no complications.
Yes,
You
sir.
elaborate on that issue. You just say one sentence. When she had cesarean section, there were no complication intraoperatively and postoperatively.
Yes, sir.
Important. We got the indication, okay, for long labor, but this is an important part of information that was uncomplicated cesarean section. Because if there was history of infected cesarean section scar or any other complication, PPH, etc., then it will change our management during this pregnancy. We will give her a chance to vaginal delivery, VBAC, only if previous section was uncomplicated. Uncomplicated. And during this pregnancy, there is no complication. Only then we go for VBAC, vaginal delivery by cesarean section. But if she had complication during cesarean section or complication during present pregnancy, then obviously it changes that we will be more inclined to do elective cesarean section in this patient. So she, gravida 3, para 1 plus 1, had previous uncomplicated cesarean section for prolonged labor. During this pregnancy, she now has PAH, which is controlled by medication Aldomet, and but now at 36 weeks, she is admitted with suspected small for gestational age because her height of fundus is smaller than 36 weeks. And this is the problem, that her blood pressure is practically controlled, but she is admitted for small gestational age. So if this is the case, you have admitted her, what will you do? Will you say a few sentences or shall I go on?
Sir, I will admit her and uh, did her blood pressure monitoring 4 hourly, do her abdominal examination, ask about any complaint, ensure the compliance of her antihypertensive medications. I will tell her about the sign and symptoms of imminent eclampsia, sudden severe abdominal pain or vaginal bleeding, and about the decreased fetal movements. And I will send her fresh blood and urine tests. And as she is taking tablet methyl dopa, I'll send her renal function test and liver function test. I will manage her with the multidisciplinary approach involving anesthetist, pediatrician, and medical physician. I will repeat her umbilical artery Doppler ultrasound weekly and growth scan. Give her a fetal kick count chart daily, CTG on the daily basis. And my aim is to take the pregnancy as close to the 38 to 39 weeks, and with the vigilant fetal fetal maternal monitoring.
Oh, good. I'll stop. I think you're well prepared. Well prepared. But I'll just try to uh, fine tune your statement that I will admit this patient for further maternal and fetal monitoring. And after admission, uh, you should say right in the beginning that I will order certain investigations,
Yes, sir.
which you mentioned halfway. Uh, right in the beginning, I'll order certain investigation and then name those investigation. You started off with renal function tests or liver function tests, but before that, we haven't learned about her hemoglobin routine investigations, which we have not mentioned. Uh, they also have to be sort of quoted or they have to be found out because during your history you did not say her hemoglobin was this much, her urine was clear or whatever. So we'll order her blood group and
Yes.
hemoglobin and urine tests. If they are normal, then we'll order for special investigations for her because she is a case of PAH and
Yes.
small for gestational age or the height of fundus is lesser than what it is. For that, what are the special investigations? You have mentioned that we'll do her ultrasound, detailed ultrasound to find out the fetus is normal because small for gestation age, nearly 19 to 20% babies are abnormality, some abnormality. So here you can highlight that I'll ask for detailed ultrasound of the fetus, which has not been done perhaps, or maybe it was done, but no harm in repeating it. And detailed ultrasound for fetal weight and fetal anomalies. And if the fetal weight is under the less than 10 percentile, then it is small for gestational age baby. And that then I'll also just elaborate a little bit that I'd like to find out whether this small baby is symmetrically small or asymmetrically small or any anomalies. That way you're conveying to the examiner that in this case, small baby could be like this, could be anomalous, could have asymmetrical, asymmetrical small baby. So, and in addition to that, for continuous monitoring, I'll ask for Doppler of umbilical vein, Doppler of cerebral artery, and they also tell you whether in umbilical vein the resistance is there or there's reversal of flow, and similarly, the resistance is reduced in cerebral artery. If you come out like this, then examiner will not have to ask any questions. After your statement, he'll just pass you. He'll just pass you. So that's the way we will monitor the fetus. And uh, then, of course, clinically, I'll evaluate the height of fundus and amount of liquor frequently and ask for kick chart as well. CTG will be done every day because its validity is for 24 hours only. And the Doppler could be repeated every week, and that is most important test to show how well the baby is doing. Uh, so I go over it. We still have plenty of time. I'll give you a chance to repeat again what that after this. How will you manage this patient? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Dr. Maria,
Yes, sir.
forget what I have told you. I am asking you that uh, this patient was admitted. If you were the specialist in charge, how you would have managed this patient?
Sir, I will admit the patient and do strict fetal maternal monitoring. I will check her blood pressure, do her abdominal examination daily, ask her about any complaint regarding severe abdominal pain or vaginal bleeding or any complaint of decreased fetal movements.
Mhm.
I'll repeat her all the baseline investigations, including complete blood count, uh, urine for proteins, and sir, renal function test, liver function test, and serum uric acid, and uh, I will repeat her obstetrical ultrasound, umbilical artery Doppler, Doppler ultrasound. Give her fetal cake count chart daily, and I will do her CTG daily, and my aim was to take the pregnancy as close to the 38 or 39 weeks.
Uh,
Uh,
just a minute. Uh,
yes,
this patient expected date of delivery of calculated is 6th of March.
yes, sir, 6th
Uh,
of March.
when will you do the cesarean section in this case or deliver this baby?
Sir, as she had previous one cesarean section, I will do her elective cesarean at 38 weeks.
Do you always do after one cesarean section, if a patient comes back to you the next pregnancy, always elective cesarean section after one cesarean section?
No, sir.
So why have you decided in this case that you'll do elective section? Any good reason? Maybe you have good reason. Come up.
Sir, as in the ultrasound, there is the there is placental insufficiency.
Yeah, possibly yes. Hmm.
Sir, if there is placental insufficiency and there is a risk of distress to the baby during spontaneous vaginal delivery, in that case, I will go for the elective cesarean.
Let me ask you. Suppose she did not have previously cesarean section. Previously, she had normal delivery, and during this pregnancy, she has this small for gestational age baby. And would you do elective cesarean section then?
Sir, if the previous pregnancy and delivery was uneventful, then if the blood pressure is controlled, and ultrasound, and in ultrasound,
Don't say if. This patient have only changed is previous instead of cesarean section normal delivery. In this patient, would you do cesarean section? She had previously normal delivery.
sir, if she had previous normal
If,
delivery, then I will go.
hmm, yes, then
Uh, Sir, I will go for normal delivery.
in this patient, the present situation, you said she has small for gestational age baby or IUG or whatever terminology you use, and that will not influence your decision making as you have changed your mind for cesarean section in this because she has got placental insufficiency, you use the word. And would you not do cesarean section in the case which I have quoted or cited?
Sir, in case of placental insufficiency, I will go for cesarean section.
So, what you're telling me that in spite of the fact that she had normal delivery previously, that just because the present pregnancy is small for gestational age, you will do elective cesarean section. Are you telling me this?
Sir, I will do cesarean section if there is a placental insufficiency. If blood flow to the baby was normal, then I will go for normal.
No, if previous normal delivery, this pregnancy is normal, then there's no question. Everybody will say that normal delivery.
Yes.
Everybody will say that there's no question how the baby should be delivered. It will be delivered normally. But in this patient, previous normal delivery, you are telling me because of small for gestation age, you will do elective cesarean section. Is that right? That's what you're telling me. But maybe I don't agree with you. If now let's get into that area of small for gestational age baby. First, how will you find out that whether it is because of placental insufficiency or because of some other reason?
So by Doppler scan,
Maybe, yes.
by Doppler ultrasound.
Is the only thing which is guiding you how to deliver the baby is only Doppler? Can we have a baby small for gestation age and Doppler may be normal?
Yes, sir.
What is that? When you will see this kind of situation that the baby is small but Doppler is normal. When will you see that situation or see that kind of patient? In other words, somebody has written there that constitutionally small baby. When do we get that everything is normal, but baby is small, and that's called constitutionally small baby. In what kind of patients you get that? See, uh, now next time I recommend, very strongly I recommend, that whatever your case is, read that chapter before you make the presentation.
Yes, sir.
And your colleagues have prepared well. They are coming out all the causes of because constitution is small baby. Because when you have this situation, first think of constitutionally small baby. First thing, which because you're seeing this patient first time, uh, the patient was previously attending some other clinic. This is the first time. So when height of fundus is lesser than gestational age, which is being quoted, the first thing which should come to your mind is wrong dates.
Yes, sir.
One by one, you exclude that. Sir, the first possibility for small baby is the patient is wrong in dates. Height of fundus will naturally be smaller. Wrong dates. But you say this wrong dates and the same in the same breath you say in this patient she is sure about her dates.
Yes, sir.
Pregnancy test done 10 days after being overdue,
Yes, sir.
right? The
Yes.
next thing is about a small baby that ethnicity. In our country, generally the babies are born, average weight is 6.5 pounds. In Europe, it is more than 7 pounds. Ethnicity is important. In us, the height of fundus is not necessarily the same. And third, patient's own physical features, height, weight, they influence the size of the baby. If the patient is short and she is underweight or overweight, both. She is underweight or overweight. In both situations, you can have small baby. Constitution is small baby. And so that's how, or if she gets any complications during early pregnancy. So you name that, sir, in this during the examination, in this case, the patient is sure of dates. Her height is this much. Her weight is BMI. You said she was 28 and within normal range. So the possibility of it being constitutionally small are not there. That should have been your answer.
Yes,
Then,
sir.
then next, if it is not constitutionally small, then what are the other causes? Other causes are right in the mother. We count them. Maternal causes, any maternal chronic disease, any chronic disease, whether related to kidney, liver, or any infection, anything, they can cause. And then maternal conditions, then we come to the placental. That placenta is not performing well, as you use the term during a presentation, placental insufficiency. That
Yes, sir.
could be due to malformation of the placenta, bilobed placenta, filamentous attachment of the placenta, and then repeated separation of the placenta, and that. So they can be caused. Then next is the baby himself. As you also said, I also agreed with you, the nearly 19 to 20% babies who are small, they have some anomaly.
Yes, sir.
And so the causes of this small baby could be constitutional and could be maternal diseases or placental diseases or cord problems, and last of all, baby himself, not constitutional baby, anomaly baby. So these things we'll rule out. After doing that, then we come to that this your Doppler is a guideline. That's a helper. It gives you guidance how the baby is doing. So that will definitely influence our decision about the date of delivery, but that is not the supreme court, not the only factor which will influence our decision when to deliver the baby. When to deliver the baby. Now, just a brief word about VBAC, vaginal birth, that you said in this case you will do elective cesarean section. I will agree with you in that sense that after previous cesarean section, you allow vaginal delivery only if the present pregnancy is uncomplicated,
Yes,
clinically,
sir.
practically. This is the word you should have used. In
Yes.
this present pregnancy after previous cesarean section, that was normal. If that cesarean section was complicated by anything, then subsequently we'd always do the elective cesarean section. That's not a problem. After two cesarean sections, there is no discussion. It's always cesarean section. But after one cesarean section, which is uncomplicated, use the word uncomplicated, and then we can think of delivering the baby vaginally, way back. But there are certain conditions which must be fulfilled before we decide whether VBAC can take place or not. And vaginal birth will be allowed if it is uncomplicated pregnancy. You should have said, although the previous section was uncomplicated, but in the present pregnancy, it is complicated by PIH, pregnancy-induced hypertension, which possibly is the cause of her small for gestational age as well. In view of that, I'll do elective cesarean section. If your statement should have been like this, that madam or sir, whoever was the examiner, that in this patient she had uncomplicated cesarean section, but during present pregnancy it is complicated by PAH, and there's the height of fundus is smaller, liquor is lesser, as you said, and in view of this, I'll do elective cesarean section. Then we come to, if you have decided to do have elective cesarean section, then how will you ensure that she can deliver vaginally in this patient? Would you like to say a few words about it, Dr. Maria? We have decided that this patient should deliver vaginally. And but what are the conditions? What are the factors you look into before you finally say yes, you can deliver vaginally? Let's presume that she is uncomplicated pregnancy. Come on.
Mm,
Very simple. Forget about when you decide that patient should deliver vaginally, what are the features or factors you look into before making this announcement or judgment? Okay, never mind, never mind. Then the feature which you should look into it, number one, maternal condition. Number two, complications of pregnancy. Number three, fetus. Number four, pelvis. And number five, the situation overall facilities available to you. I repeat,
yes, sir.
before you decide for vaginal delivery, any vaginal delivery, uh, you should look into is there any maternal disease or complication. Number two, any complication of pregnancy. Number three, that lie of the fetus presentation is favorable. And number four, that pelvis is adequate for delivery and the facilities around you. All these features
Car, sir.
will decide whether you can deliver that patient normally. Very simple, make it simple that if there's any maternal complication that necessitates that patient should deliver vaginally, like hypertension, diabetes, or anything, then they may swing the weight and influence your decision for vaginal delivery or abdominal delivery. Number two, complications of pregnancy, that preeclampsia, eclampsia, IUGR, you have mentioned repeatedly, or anything. Then repeated APH or placenta previa. All these are indications for this, which will influence your decision whether patient can deliver vaginally or not. And then uh, lie of the fetus and size of the fetus and presentation. These are most important. We all know that. And before we decide, we'll make assessment of the pelvis. There is no CPD, pelvic disproportion. I'll assess the pelvis, whether it's adequate for that baby or not. And finally, where am I? What are the conditions under which I'm working, or whether the facilities for everything are available or not. And so these are the factors which you will assess before you decide for VBAC, for vaginal birth after this. So in this case, supporting you, Dr. Maria,
Yes,
although the previous section was uncomplicated, but this pregnancy is complicated by
yes,
age and also the small size of the baby for
yes,
and I will do. Although you did fetal monitoring, fetus is doing well. So I'll do say I'll totally agree with you. I,
yes.
the, my co-examiner may not agree with you. There's another thing. Uh, you said I will deliver this baby vaginally. Other one say, oh, no, cesarean section. Other one say, oh, no, no, no. You know, if you do two cesarean section, then she will always end up in cesarean section. Yes, sir. Then,
Yes,
why don't you give her a chance for vaginal delivery? You say that I don't want to risk because here in the present pregnancy is complicated by these two factors. So I will stick to your statement. Don't because the other examiner doesn't agree with you. Don't just say okay, sir, I will deliver vaginal. No. Give arguments in your support. So in this case, I'll do that. So, I personally feel, Dr. Maya, you've done very well. But one strong recommendation to all of you, before you make the presentation, or at least even if you're not making a presentation, you should study what is going to be discussed. You will be go home wiser after the talk, or you can ask questions to clarify any suspicions or doubts about whatever is being discussed. Thank you very much. We still have 10 minutes more. Would you like to ask any questions or anything? Send those questions. Sir, we would put that statement again. Dr. Mahapara, Dr. Ali Arsalan was saying something. Have you sent all the questions to my secretary? I'll Shafi Saab.
जी सर, मैं बताता हूँ।
जी बताइए।
सर आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन। सर हम इस पेशेंट को 37 वीक्स पे डिलीवर कराएंगे बिकॉज शी हैज अ पीआईए स्मॉल फॉर जेस्टेशन।
जी।
सो अकॉर्डिंग टू द रीसेंट गाइडलाइंस हम 37 पे ही स्टिक रहेंगे फॉर द इलेक्टिव इंजेक्शन अंडर कवर ऑफ स्टेरॉइड्स।
गाइडलाइन 36 पे करेंगे। जी, मैं ये कहूँगा कि सिंपल इसको आप अपने लिए इस तरह से अडॉप्ट कीजिए कि आफ्टर 36 आई स्टार्ट इवेलुएटिंग very closely well-being of the fetus. Well-being of the fetus. If the fetus is well, we daily monitoring twice a week, BPP or kick chart and etc. Then I can continue the pregnancy till 37 complete weeks. Otherwise, if there's any doubt, I'll do elective procedure or delivery at 36 weeks. Because the closer you go to that, conditions become more favorable for vaginal birth than the away from the term. At 37 complete weeks, the cervix will be favorable for vaginal delivery, and you will not have to ripen it and then induction of labor. And at 36 weeks, it won't be. So this guideline you can apply. That provided the baby is not doing well, or there is some indication that supply line to the baby is not well by CTG, by BPP, by Doppler, then I'll do, sir. जी।
और सर वो बायोफिजिकल प्रोफाइल के बारे में पूछना था कि शैल वी यूज अ कन्वेंशनल बायोफिजिकल प्रोफाइल और मॉडिफाइड बायो प्रोफाइल एग्जाम में?
माफ कीजिए, मुझे दोनों के दरमियान फर्क नहीं पता। जो भी है मॉडिफाइड, आई सपोज अगर बीपीपी पुराना जिसको मैं जानता हूँ उससे अब कोई मॉडिफाई होके कोई नया एलिमेंट उसमें ऐड हो गया तो यूज द लेटेस्ट वन मॉडिफाइड, आई वुड इमेजिन।
सर ये क्रोमोसोमल जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली स्मॉल बेबी होता है और एक ये क्रोमोसोमल एनॉमली वाला बेबी होता है, इसमें डिफरेंशिएट कैसे करते हैं?
जी, उसका जो फाइनल कोर्ट ऑफ अपील है वो तो कैरियोटाइपिंग ही है। एमनियोसेंटेसिस कीजिए या कीजिए, आजकल एमनियोसेंटेसिस या सीवीएस कोरियम वेलस सैंपलिंग की बजाय हार्मोनी टेस्ट है, वो नॉन इन्वेजिव प्री नेटल टेस्ट NIPT, उसका ब्रांड नेम हार्मोनी। तो वो 8 to 10 वीक्स पे हो जाता है, which tells you much more than any other test subsequently or at that time. So I would इसको आप अच्छी तरह अप्लाई कीजिए, it is worth it. गो महंगा है वो टेस्ट के लिए, अभी that test is not done in Pakistan. You have to send the sample either to Dubai or to London, but still worth it because you can make that diagnosis of any anomaly of the baby, which is not detectable by ultrasound. It is detectable by only cytogenetics or karyotyping. Then that is a great help that at 8 to 10 weeks you make that diagnosis. 8 to 10 weeks, that is NIPT, non-invasive pre-implantation testing. So make use of it. The cost is worthwhile. Is worthwhile provided the patient can afford it. But subsequently, if you are asked at this stage, if the patient, you suspect the anomaly of the baby, first you will make maximum use of ultrasound to find out any anomaly which are detectable, structural anomalies which are detectable, because ultrasound cannot detect at this stage any trisomy or like trisomy 21 can be detected best at 12 weeks, not at this stage, and or any other chromosomal or genetic anomalies. But still, you can seek help of karyotyping by doing amniocentesis or chordocentesis. Well, these are theoretical things. The chordocentesis, if the facility is available, and then do karyotyping or cytogenetics.
हेलो
जी
सर, मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन ये करना चाह रही हूँ कि एक पेशेंट है हमारे पास, उसका BMI 35 हो और वो जो है फर्स्ट टाइम जो है GDM के साथ फुल टर्म पे आए, और जो है पेशेंट के स्कैन पे जो है ना सर उसका 6 to 7 AFI हो, तो सर उसमें हम उसको फ्लूइड लगाएंगे? उसके ओलिगो, मतलब बुक्स तो कहती है कि 5 से कम पे ओलिगो नहीं होता, बट हम क्लिनिकली देखें वार्ड्स में तो हम इस पे थोड़ा इनटेक उसका इंक्रीज करते हैं। तो हाउ शुड वी मैनेज दिस पेशेंट? 6 to 7 उसका हो और AFI हो और साथ में उसकी ये फैक्टर्स हो, PIH हो और IUGR उसका मतलब बेबी में नहीं था।
मैं आपका सवाल इस तरह समझ गया हूँ कि ये पेशेंट को ओलिगोहाइड्रेमनियोस है या जिसको पॉलीहाइड्रेमनियोस है, क्या पैरेंटरल फ्लूइड देने से उनका वॉल्यूम बदल जाएगा? नहीं, क्योंकि जो आप ड्रिप लगाते हो या पैरेंटरली फ्लूइड देते हो या पेशेंट पी ले, तो बहुत सारे पेशेंट्स आपके पास आएंगे जो पूछेंगे ओलिगोहाइड्रेमनियोस है तो मैं ड्रिप लगवा लूं या मैं पानी ज्यादा पी लूं, तो दैट डजंट मेक एनी इन्फ्लुएंस। और दूसरी तरफ जिसको पॉलीहाइड्रेमनियोस, मैं फ्लूइड रिस्ट्रिक्शन कर दूं, नहीं, क्योंकि वो पेशेंट्स ब्लड वॉल्यूम और फ्लूइड लेवल does not influence directly because liquor is actively produced. It is not passive transfer from mother to the baby. It is actively produced. And whatever is being actively produced, that will not be influenced by patient's blood volume. So there is no harm, in my opinion, putting up a drip, or if you need to give some drugs through the drip infusion or anything, then just because of that, to avoid that. जी
FGR baby lungs
हाँ,
maturation.
एक मिनट मेरे पास आ गया।
In FGR baby lungs maturation occurs earlier due to stress. So shall we go with steroids?
मुझे पढ़ लो।
ये लो।
मैं तो रिपोर्ट सर
हाँ जी, छोटा है।
एक किसने सवाल भेजा?
ये शादी, डॉक्टर शादी है।
डॉक्टर शाजिया, आपने कोई सवाल भेजा हो प्लीज?
जी सर, जैसे कि IUGR बेबी में फीटल लंग्स मैच्योरिटी अर्लियर हो जाती है अप टू 36 वीक्स, तो आफ्टर 36 वीक शैल वी गिव स्टेरॉइड कवर टू द फीटस बिफोर डिलीवरी?
मैं तो फॉर प्रैक्टिकल पर्पसेस आई विल नॉट वोट अगेंस्ट इट, आई विल वोट फॉर इट, क्योंकि अगर आप स्टेरॉइड देते हैं जो उसके एडवर्स इफेक्ट्स है बड़े शॉर्ट लिव्ड है, डायबिटिक में और किसी में, तो इसलिए उसको स्टीरॉइड देने ही मदर में हो जाता है कि सब्सिक्वेंटली इन्फेक्शन करे। लेकिन अब वो ओवर द इयर्स thousands of studies, it has been seen the benefits are much more than the disadvantages. So no harm in giving steroid to that patient as well.
Okay,